Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on another video. I am sure you clicked because you also want to get the tea. Like, what exactly is the truth, right? I came to a medical professional who can answer all of the questions that we have. And here is Dr. Zack.
Greetings, Anna. It's a pleasure to actually finally meet you.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's my pleasure.
So, my audience and I think, have a lot of questions because the Western world portrays Africa to be safe, where you have to get multiple injections before you can come, where you need to get the yellow fever vaccine, where you need to get the, dengue, or so many things. People are a little bit disencouraged to come. And I'm like, let me just ask a professional to see, is it really true? Because when we came, they gave us a year's supply of malaria pills to take each month. And we initially tried to do that. But we started noticing that we would get very lucid dreams and we would feel a little bit sick the day that we took it. And my son, he had to take like a quarter of the pill. But I think it was still a lot for him, so he'd be waking up sweating and saying that somebody's chasing him, but only when he took the pill. So is it really safe?
Well, the question of safety has to be addressed from the outset. Okay, so the thing about malaria is, in fact, it is endemic to tropical regions. So anywhere tropical, and of course Africa is generally speaking tropical. Ghana particularly, we have, should I say, one of the highest prevalences when it comes to malaria. So in terms of being preventative, it is quite a plausible, should I say, idea to have those pills on hand before you come in. Because what's going to end up happening is, if you are visiting maybe for the first time and you don't have intentions of staying long term, the chances of you getting exposed to the malarial parasites is realistic. It's quite there. So in an attempt to, should I say, circumvent an infection, the WHO deemed it necessary that travelers that are not from endemic regions, maybe from Europe or the Western world, visiting tropical Africa, have to get these prophylactic pills, so to speak. Yes.
So is it that when you take the pills, because in my eyes, and I'm not a professional, the pills is a lesser quantity of medicine you take when you actually get sick. So when you actually get sick, it seems like they give you malaria medicine, like the pills that you take preventively, but then in a higher dosage. Is that right?
That is not entirely accurate because we have general guidelines for malaria treatment in Ghana. And there are three, generally speaking, recommended treatments. So there's, not to be too technical, but there's the artemether-lumefantrine, you can also do the DHAP, or you can do the ASAQ. Okay. So those are quite different therapies than what is used prophylactically to prevent the malaria infection. However, you do have a point. There was a point in time, or there is the reality that those pills at higher doses can be effective at eliminating the parasites.
Okay. So is it maybe true that doctors and medical staff here are trained better how to deal with malaria than abroad?
Most definitely, most definitely. You know, a funny story is, so I trained in China, and I had a colleague of mine who was from Tanzania. So normal vacation, he goes back home to Tanzania, and then he returns to China when the semester begins. Okay, so as he returns, a few weeks upon his return to China, he begins feeling ill. Okay, he has the general constitutional symptoms: fever, lethargy, loss of appetite. You know, he just wasn't feeling right. So he was on admission at a Chinese hospital. And can you believe they were not able to diagnose malaria?
Wow.
So he ended up being hospitalized, and the malaria actually progressed and it became complicated to the point where it actually went into his brain, or cerebral malaria as we call it. So he was in a really bad state. But you see, a Ghanaian trained doctor or a doctor who practices in Ghana would be able to recognize and know
that is malaria.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So there is some validity to that statement.
So why I'm asking you why. To me, it seems that all doctors should just be trained how to treat malaria. I don't understand why it's a thing. How can you be a medical professional but not know about tropical diseases?
Indeed, that is a great question. I would say that malaria is regarded as a global health threat, and there have been efforts to try and eradicate malaria. Shout out to Bill Gates. Anywho, from my knowledge, I know that in the US there is tropical medicine as part of their curriculum, and they do study it. However, it's a difference between knowing it theoretically and dealing with it on a daily basis.
Yes.
So yes, you may know it in theory, but can you identify it clinically?
Yeah.
That's a different question, because it can mimic so many different diseases in the way that it presents.
I understand. So I think the main question is, can you die from malaria?
Indeed, you can. You can. Not to be coy, but you can die from anything. But it's a serious question we have to regard. The stats are quite significant. Year round, I believe, like at least 200,000 kids across Africa succumb to the ravages of malaria. Yes, children particularly tends to be more fatal. Malaria does have the propensity to be fatal and lead to mortality, that is death. However, with that being said, in recent times, I believe in the year 2020, Ghana recorded only 300 deaths from malaria. So that's a significant improvement from what the past trends have been, and because now there's a lot more emphasis on keeping the environment hygienic, and the treatments are readily available, and that has also contributed in managing it before it gets severe.
Yeah. I still haven't gotten it all the time that I was here.
Interesting.
And I stopped taking that medicine because it screwed with our head.
Do you happen to know your blood phenotype?
I really don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know. But I think my daughter had it when we went to the village, and it seems like it's very much similar to flu. Like she was really hot and she was having diarrhea. She didn't have any appetite. She seemed a little pale, and it looked like she lost weight. So then my auntie said, without diagnosing her with a medical note, I don't even think that's safe.
In the village, like they are experts.
Oh really?
They see the trends, so they are able to. This is not medical opinion, but they're able to at least be some way halfway right sometimes.
Okay. Because we were so far out of the city, my auntie said, we think this is malaria, let me go and give her some medicine. It was a herbal medicine, and it actually helped her. So I was really proud and thankful that my daughter survived. But when we started talking, she said that malaria is similar to flu, but if you don't treat it, that is when it goes wrong. Is that correct?
So in children, it can present like a flu in terms of what you're describing, the loss of appetite, the diarrhea, some have vomiting, the loss, the lethargy, and the spike in temperature. Generally speaking, it's an inflammatory response to the parasites. So your body is going to mount an immune response constitutionally, which is generally characterized by fever and signs of inflammation. In children, we are likely to see diarrhea, vomiting, and of course, if the red blood cells have been broken down significantly, they can become pale, and it will be more evident in individuals with lighter skin. So, absolutely. Okay.
So because of what happened with the malaria medicine, when I came now, I'm only here for 3 weeks. I haven't taken it, so it's a good one. So let's say I go back, right? And what are the things that I have to look out for?
When you go back?
Yes.
So when you pay a visit to an endemic region where malaria is known to be established, I think on your return back, it may be prudent to actually have the prophylaxis or some form of treatment. Because let's look at this scenario. You came here, you got bitten by a female Anopheles mosquito. Let's say you get infected, but there's an incubation period, right? Depending on the species of the plasmodium. Okay, and for whatever reason, you don't experience the symptoms while you're here, and you begin experiencing the symptoms when you get back. referring back to the scenario where my friend was misdiagnosed in China,
Yeah.
it may be a challenge for the physicians there. But if they have the history that you were visiting from, you have returned from an endemic region, they may have clues that you may be dealing with malaria. So in that regard, it may be prudent to actually have some treatment on hand so that you just take care of it before it exacerbates.
Yeah, I get
Absolutely.
it. So if I get sick and I feel high feverish, I don't immediately have to think about COVID. It could also be malaria.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, in this COVID era, malaria has to be screened for, generally speaking, because the presentation can be quite similar. So if you're investigating someone for COVID, you might as well go ahead and investigate them for malaria as well.
Okay.
Very, very important, especially in Ghana.
Yeah.
Very important.
Okay. So a lot of people are, like I said, referring malaria like similar to flu. I think my cousin has had malaria in the time that we visited, maybe 3 times. Is that normal?
Is that normal? It can be normal. It can be normal. I don't know what the severity of the malaria was, and I don't know what the treatment offered at the different junctures was. So, is that normal? We have partially treated malaria. Sometimes individuals do not complete the course of treatment. So there's still some parasites hiding, usually around the liver or incubated. So over time they can go undergo asexual reproduction and multiply again and give you another spell. So it's very important that in the treatment of malaria, the goal is to eradicate parasites or reduce parasitemia, that's parasites in the blood. And how do you do that? You do that by ensuring that you complete the entire course of the treatment. So if you get it once, make sure that you finish it and not just get better and abandon the treatment.
Yes.
Where you're now just going to re-experience another spell. So is that normal? That is, it depends.
Yeah, I get it.
And like yourself, for all you know, maybe your blood genotype in terms of your electrophoresis, some people have certain traits of their blood cell, the hemoglobin, which makes them resistant, or should I say less susceptible to malaria.
Because they love to bite me, but I don't get sick.
You don't get it. So for example, sickle cell, and people with thalassemia, and to a degree even people with G6PD. These are certain conditions where the malaria parasites is not able to survive long enough in their red blood cells to even spread. Yeah, so it could be if you just do some investigations and confirm what your
I'll check that
HB
and I'll let you know.
I'd love to.
Okay, so people are watching and thinking about, I would love to visit Africa, but this malaria, I'm a little scared. What would your advice be?
My advice is when you are coming to Africa, first of all, it is true that malaria is endemic in several parts of Africa. However, we have great preventative measures. Okay, so if you come and you are using insecticides, insect repellents, wearing long clothes, living in well-kept environments, and also as a consideration, taking a prophylactic pill, if you can tolerate it, you would be greatly reducing your chances of contracting, should I say, getting infected with malaria. It's not to be regarded as something that is not severe, because it can be, but it's not also a death sentence. It's far from a death sentence. Yeah, like getting malaria when I was a kid was just like, just getting a headache. Oh, it's malaria. Oh, cool. Go for an injection. And that was that. It's not as scary as it's purported to be. However, that is not to say that it cannot be fatal, because it actually can. So we just have to pragmatically assess what the realistic outcome of malaria infections are. 9 times out of 10, most people would be just fine.
Okay. So what me and my family did, we actually had these home kits in the house. So anytime anybody gets a fever, we train the kid that I know you don't like it, but you're going to get pricked in your finger, and we're going to test it. We have to while
you actually got them to comply.
Yeah, it was difficult, but I had to bribe them with some candy and whatnot. But they actually got used to it over a while. So anytime they felt a little high feverish or anything, we just prick them in the finger and do the test kit, and then we'll see. Is that a safe enough method?
Absolutely. In fact, we rely on that as a quick means to get feedback as to whether we are trying to confirm a malaria diagnosis. The definitive diagnosis of malaria is to literally take blood and visualize the parasites under a microscope. But look, that's not always possible. Not every facility has microscopes readily available. So the test kit you are describing, that's what we call the RDT, the Rapid Diagnostic Test. What it does is it's able to pick up the antigens that the parasite generates. Okay, so there are specific, should I call them proteins, that the malaria parasite is able to evoke from the body, and through the test kit, it's able to pick up the presence of said antigens, and that can be confirmatory of a diagnosis of malaria. So yes, that would be one of the easiest non-hassle free ways to be able to check whether or not you have malaria.
Okay. Then I think it's safe to say that it's your own choice if you would like to take the malaria medicine for a longer period of time. But if you visit, it's best to do it just as a precaution.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Sure.
So in summary, ultimately it comes down to your length of stay and what you're really looking to achieve. If you're going to be here long term, those pills may not necessarily looking at perhaps maybe if you're not as tolerant to the pills, because a lot of people have a lot of the
side effects.
Exactly, the brain side effects and as well as the gastrointestinal side effects. If that's you and you're going to be here long term, you can consider the other ways of preventing the treatment and the infection. And if you do get infected, you are literally in the best place to manage it, so you would not have a problem. But if you are visiting for a short while and you can't be bothered and you just don't want to go back with anything, just to be safe. Everyone likes some security and insurance every now and then, and you can tolerate the prophylactic pill, then sure, you can give that a shot.
It gets me to my last question.
Okay.
Why does everybody needs to have a yellow fever vaccine when they enter Ghana? Why is that mandatory or necessary?
Wow. So yellow fever, for the longest time, has been one of the troublesome infectious diseases. Okay. Similarly, the mosquito is the culprit here, and a vaccine has been a very efficacious vaccine for yellow fever has been established. So, given the fatality of yellow fever and the fact that it has to run its course, in that when you get infected with yellow fever, the treatment options are symptomatic management. So, if you have the jaundice, there are things you do, the fever, everything that is associated with it, and it had quite a significant fatality. So, in an attempt to just prevent the spread and infection of yellow fever, a vaccine was brought up. So anyone visiting here, it is actually smart to get a yellow fever vaccination.
So maybe it's also a way of protecting the country and not necessarily the people coming in.
Exactly.
Okay, I get it now.
Exactly. So it goes both ways.
Both ways,
It goes both ways. Because we don't want you coming and getting it and sending it and spreading it. Neither do we want you introducing it here.
Yes, I understand. Okay. Thank you so much. We've learned a lot today, guys. So where can they find Dr. Zack if they have any more questions?
If you have any more questions, you find me where I'm always hanging out on the gram at Zack's Fever. I know I don't speak medically like this on Instagram, but maybe I will in due time. But you can connect with me on Instagram at Zack's Fever. I'll be glad to answer any of your questions. If you're coming from Anna's YouTube channel, let me know that as well so that I can actually pay more attention.
Thank you very much. And everybody who's watching, do not be discouraged. Africa, and particularly Ghana, is a beautiful and very safe country to be in.
Absolutely.
I hope to see you soon. Bye.